The Korean War by Sam Nearson. The Korean War took place from June 24th, 1950 and July 27th, 1953. It took place in Korea.
Oh my God!
In 1945, when World War II ended, Japan was kicked out back to Japan, with the Soviets occupying North Korea and the US occupying South Korea. By 1948, the country was split by the 38th parallel into North and South Korea. South Korea was a capitalist nation, while North Korea was a communist nation. Now, in 1948, the Soviets left North Korea, and in 1949, the US followed suit and also left. However, this left North Korea and South Korea to their devices all alone, and they wanted to fight. On June 25th, 1950, North Korea overtook South Korea, taking the capital and forcing South Koreans all the way back to Busan. Now, the President of the United States, Harry S. Truman, did not like this because he was all for the containment of communism, and he did not want communist influence to spread to other nearby countries if North Korea succeeded. So, the UN appealed for North Korea to basically just get out of South Korea, right? Just back off, leave them alone, get out. North Korea respectfully declined. So when the UN met, they decided to send reinforcement to South Korea so that they could take back their land. They employed all of these countries to help, and the combat units were led under General MacArthur. With South Korea's forces in Busan, the United Nations also went there. On September 15th, 1950, the United Nations launched an amphibious attack.
Pretend that's amphibious.
And they forced North Korea all the way back over the 38th parallel into North Korea. Now, General MacArthur was not just about taking back the land they had lost, he also wanted to exact revenge on North Korea. Truman was all for it, and MacArthur did it. On October 12th, 1950, the United Nations forced North Korea out of North Korea and into China.
And then there was
I don't know how they didn't see that coming. Anyways, China wasn't happy. They forced them out of North Korea all the way back to Busan again.
Again? Seriously?
General MacArthur didn't like this. Didn't like that at all. He wants to nuke North Korea. Truman says, "What the heck? That's bad. We don't nuke people." He kicks him out. Because Truman doesn't want to delete communism. He wants to contain it. So yeah, in June 1951, the UN sent reinforcements to South Korea, and they were able to force China back over the 38th parallel, and now they were at an unfortunate stalemate between the two nations. General Dwight D. Eisenhower became President Eisenhower in 1953. He sought for peace between the two nations.
Now fighting!
On July 27th, 1953, after 2 years of the two countries bargaining, an armistice was signed, saying that neither of the countries would fight anymore. This also made it so that the US and the Soviets could not fight through Korea anymore. The war was over. I'd like to talk about proxy war. Now, a proxy war is a war instigated by a major power which does not itself become involved. Now the real definition. Proxy war is when two larger powers, such as the United States and the Soviets, are fighting through other countries. Since they can't fight each other directly, they used Korea to fight each other with the US and South Korea and the Soviets backing North Korea. Unfortunately, this war only elevated tensions between these two major powers. And while it didn't affect the average American citizen's life back in America, it did majorly affect the soldiers who did fight in the Korean War. Mostly, there were lots of deaths. It took up a lot of their time, and also, there are still U.S. military bases in Korea that U.S. military still are posted at to make sure North Korea doesn't come down into South Korea and take it back to ward them off. Let's talk about the legacy of the Korean War. The American legacy, that is. Unfortunately, the Korean War is often overlooked in history. Since the Korean War was smushed between two massive events, being World War II and the Vietnam War, it is often forgotten or researched less or talked about less. Not to say it didn't have a massive effect, such as all the deaths of the soldiers, but in America it's not really remembered well. Now let's talk about the Korean legacy. Korea was much more affected by the Korean War than the US was. The war left many orphans, divided families, military bases in Korea that are still in effect today, deaths, and more not so nice effects. This is the end of my presentation. I hope this video knocked your socks off. Go PA and have a great day. And here are my sources.